In tonight's Technology Insider, Chinese firms and the perceived threat to national security. Huawei Technologies and ZTE Corporation, China's top two tech firms, supply telecommunications gear and mobile phones around the world. Now they want to gain a foothold in the U.S. On Monday, the House Intelligence Committee issued a report. It said U.S. regulators should block mergers and acquisitions between those companies and U.S. firms because they pose an espionage risk. For analysis, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider. Cedric Leighton is a military intelligence officer and retired U.S. Air Force colonel. He's also the CEO of Cedric Leighton Associates. So, Cedric, this report is the result of a one-year probe during which Huawei and ZTE denied being influenced by the Chinese government. What do you make of this?
Well, Morris, I think it's one of those situations where obviously there are a lot of concerns within the U.S. security sector, and not only has the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence released this report, but they've also looked at things from the intelligence community, reports from the intelligence community, as well as reports from former and current employees of Huawei itself. So what that means is that there are a lot of reports that there are some possible espionage criteria that have been met, and there's a technical possibility that Huawei could actually be conducting espionage on behalf of the Chinese government.
At the same time these companies are doing business here, Huawei employs 1,700 people in the U.S. The company earned $1.3 billion last year alone. A private telecom provider in rural Kansas says Huawei is the only company that offers fast 4G networking. Are lawmakers standing in the way of progress?
You know, and Morris, when you look at that, it is one of those situations where the defense industrial base and the communications industrial base has rapidly been ceded to foreign competitors. And of course, the Chinese are best poised to take advantage of that. Not only do are they quick adopters of technology, but they're also adopters of our business models. For example, Huawei itself not only designs and markets telecommunications equipment, but they also outsource the manufacturing of that equipment on the model of Cisco and on just like the model of Apple. So they're very quick learners. They understand exactly what they're doing, and they provide a good and reliable service. That is why Huawei, for example, and ZTE as well, are very, very big players in the African market right now.
And here's a guy in Dodge City, Kansas saying, look, it's a rural area. We need fast 4G wireless communications. It's what the country's supposed to have. He says nobody in this country makes this kind of equipment except Huawei and a few others who are all overseas. Problem is, as we know, with the Chinese, it becomes very much of sort of like a state-run monopoly there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And that's one of the key things where we have to understand that countries like China, at least from an economic standpoint, will use the state to further their own enterprises. That's why you see a lot of Chinese companies making big inroads in the various commercial sectors that they're engaged in. And you can see the same trend developing not only in the telecommunications market and in the IT markets, but also in markets such as aircraft in the future and possibly other defense-related industries as well, such as unmanned aerial systems.
Now, the House Intelligence Committee report follows a series of cyber attacks on big banks. Millions of customers, myself included, could not access our accounts online. What happened there, Cedric?
Well, basically what happened was there was a concerted effort purportedly by a group claiming to have ties to the Islamic world that was designed to deny service to customers. The way in which the attack worked is they overloaded the banking system, and it prevented legitimate users from accessing their accounts. As far as we know right now, there has been no compromise of bank data in terms of account data or actual access to accounts. So that part is a good thing, and it's also good that the banks seem to have mitigated the damage from this. But there's always the problem that this could get even further along, and they could have the technical capability to extend themselves beyond the firewalls and other safeguards that the banks have, and that's what we have to try to avoid.
Well, you're exactly right, Cedric. The authorities say these hackers didn't steal any money, but the next time might be different. Is it time to get back to basics like stuffing our money in the mattress?
Well, I think stuffing the money in the mattress is, even in these at times of low interest rates is probably not the best idea, but we definitely have to pay attention to what's going on in our accounts. We have to really keep track of everything that happens electronically to our accounts. If there are questionable charges, we have to make sure that we're in contact with the bank immediately. The banks have some pretty good systems for keeping us up to date on what's in there, but we should also know ourselves what's in there before it's too late.
You know, these jihadists, denial of service attacks have been going on for a long time. They must be relatively easy compared to other hacking. If this is what the Al-Qaeda branches want to do, it seems like all they have to do is get a bunch of slave computers around the world and start targeting U.S. companies.
Well, that's exactly what could happen, and that's where botnets come into play. And when you look at how botnets actually work, that is exactly how they make it work. They go in and they take other computers that are out there, make them, in essence, their own. In some cases, they are willing computers. In some cases, they are not. And when you go into that particular situation, you have the possibility of having an army, a cyber army of your own, where the soldiers don't even know that they're part of that army.
Now, these concerns are not limited to big telecom companies and banks. Last week, the FBI warned consumers about a new trend. Tell us more, Cedric, about ransomware.
Well, ransomware is the ability to get into and, in essence, do the same thing as a kidnapper would, for example, when you're holding somebody for ransom. What they do is they take over your computer, and they want to make sure that, first of all, you comply with their demands. So what they'll do is they'll send a message that purports to come from a law enforcement agency. In Great Britain, they will often use the London Metropolitan Police website as a cover for their activities. They'll also use the Scotland Yard website. Here, this is fairly new for the United States, but they tend to try to use a fake FBI website. It is not the real FBI website, but if that ever happens to somebody, what they need to do is they need to make sure that they contact the FBI or other law enforcement officials and never, ever provide money or anything else to folks that are engaged in this particular effort.
So how does the average computer user protect their info? And don't tell me password protection. We've gone beyond that. This is serious stuff now, Cedric.
Yeah, absolutely. Password protection is only a very minute piece of the security arena, security arsenal, I should say, that you have. What you need to do is you need to make sure that you have all of the software updates in your computer, and even that is not a complete protective mechanism, but you need to prevent as many viruses from getting in as possible. You need to clean your system on at least a weekly basis. And what you also need to do is you need to make sure that each and every activity that you do online is with as much of a safety in mind as you possibly can have. For example, don't go to risky sites, don't go to areas that, sites that you don't know anything about, and certainly don't click on messages that are not from people that you know.
Good advice. Cedric Leighton, CEO of Cedric Leighton Associates. Thanks for all your input tonight on Capital Insider.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Morris.